Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party, the podcast that is taking a gap year to Botswana to make tampons, but has one last night to party. So I'm calling Malala and rounding up the gang to talk about Booksmart. Can I get a what? I'm Dallas King, and I'm wearing a t-shirt of myself, wearing a t-shirt of myself, wearing a t-shirt of myself. And with me in the pod booth is a man who this Edinburgh Fringe Festival will be performing a one-man version of Shakespeare in the parking lot. It's Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I took a night off from doing a Korean face mask to do this, so yeah, it wasn't a problem at all.
I don't need to know the terms. But also joining us is someone I have no doubt would crush an Alanis Morissette song in the karaoke. It's Kim Morrison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So before we get into today's hot topic, I just wanted to bring up the fact that on the last episode, Lee and I were discussing our pats, and we both recommended one particular film to watch to change your mind on him, and we both picked Good Time, and it turns out that it seems Matt Reeves was also watching that film, and that was the film that convinced him to cast him as Batman. So he clearly listened, to the podcast, and I think we've done a good job there, haven't we, Lee?
I think we have, yes. If he listens to Filibuster, he's clearly made his decision on the back of that, or maybe he's an A24 fan and listens to our other podcast. Either way, he definitely counts as one of our 3 listeners.
Oh, I'd like to think there was more than that, or at least 3 people listening again and again and again. So on today's show, we're feeling like we're in a John Hughes Rite de Passage movie as we discuss Booksmart, the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde and written by 4 women: Susanna Fogel, who did The Spy Who Dumped Me, Emily Halpern, Sarah Haskins, and Katie Silberman, who is the screenwriter of such films such as Is It Romantic and Set It Up from Netflix. So on the last day of school, best friends and straight-A students Molly, Beanie Feldstein, and Amy, Caitlin Deaver, realised that everyone else managed to get into great schools too, and they resolved to have one final big night before graduation. So, Kim, I'm going to come to you first. Was the film hella good or super bad?
I thought it was hella good. I loved it. It seemed like a lot of kind of teenagey, high school, 2 best friend girl type of films, and this was right up my street. It was just really funny, like my kind of humour, and I was a bit worried it was going to be a bit like a lot of people. I saw people describing it as like the female version is super bad, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Maybe not my humour, but it was perfect. I really liked it, and I laughed the entire way through. It was brilliant.
Excellent. And Lee, over to you. Was it The Breakfast Club or A Dog's Dinner?
I really loved it too. I've seen it twice now, and it's one of those movies that adds to it on a repeat viewing. I really enjoyed it. There's been a bit of buzz about this film for a little while, and obviously we got to see it a kind of few weeks before sort of it all kind of kicked off with a kind of Cineworld preview, so it was kind of good to get in before some of it's been a bit spoiled with tweets and people uploading clips, because it's kind of available on Netflix in France and Mexico, I think it is. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's got such a killer cast, so much to enjoy, so much humour, and I think that a lot of these actors and actresses are going to go on to have huge careers.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I really enjoyed this film. For me, it's up there in my top 3 of the year. I haven't laughed like this at another film all year. I think I said on a previous podcast at one point that I've never cried at a movie. I should probably actually rephrase that. I've never, cried with sadness or emotion at a movie. However, I've cried with laughter at certain movies, and this one I was in tears at the karaoke scene with that performance of You Ought to Know. I thought it just ended me completely. But I guess we should go into the fact that it has been billed as the female Superbad. Obviously, plot-wise, it's very similar, that 2 girls are trying to get to a party. You've got the fact that Beanie Feldstein happens to be Jonah Hill's sister as well. And, people, it seems, certainly in America, were for some reason expecting this to do like $100 million in its opening weekend. I mean, it got a very wide release. I think about 1,000 screens in its opening weekend, but only took in around about $8-9 million. I think over here it's done okay, but it certainly hasn't made a big splash at the box office either. But I think this is going to turn into one of the sort of cult hits, and it'll be sort of up there with sort of Mean Girls and Clueless and stuff like that for quotability, and one that people go back to watch again and again and again. What do you people think?
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that one. I think it's one of those ones that it may have disappointed at the box office, but when you kind of think of the competition it's going up against, I mean, it sort of started to roll out last week in cinemas here, and then it's going up against Godzilla, it's going up against Aladdin, sort of family movies that are going to kind of get the male teenage audience. You know, it's on a bit of a hiding to nothing really in kind of UK cinemas at the moment. It's kind of got to rely on maybe people picking this as their second or third choice of the week. If it's kind of trying to appeal to sort of the general film audience, I think the audience that are going to see this are sort of, it's definitely appealed to the right audience, the people that will go along and see a film like this and champion a film like this. They have got those people into the seats, but they may not have got the kind of Joe public that will probably eventually catch this film on Netflix or some sort of streaming service.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people I kind of spoke to when I told them I was going to see it didn't really seem to know like what it was about. They were like, "Oh, I've heard about it, but I don't really know what it's about or anything." So it maybe suffered a little bit from that, and people just kind of hearing about it and not. And I always think like high school films as well, people are like maybe too cool to go and see them, but you shouldn't be. It's amazing. Go and see it. So
yeah, no, I think it's a one that's, you know, certainly on film Twitter everyone was going crazy for, and, you know, telling everyone, oh, you have to go and see this film, make sure you go and support these films over the blockbusters, don't need the money, you know, go and support these ones. But I think it's one that will stand the test of time. It'll probably be up there with like in the sort of critics list at the end of the year. I think it certainly will end up in my top 10, maybe even my top 5 at the end of the year. But, you know, there was a lot of sort of people saying, you know, you have to go out and see this, especially Olivia Wilde, who was saying, you know, please support this film and stuff like that in order. And she was sort of using the sort of female filmmaker card. You know, if people don't go out and see these films at the box office, then we're not going to get the opportunities. I mean, what did you guys make of her in her sort of debut directorial mode? Kim, what did you make of did you think she nailed it, or do you think there's still work to be done?
I mean, yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I can't really think of anything that like would have been improved on. I thought it was really fun and a bit weird, and things like the whole weird animation sequence where there were Barbies was just cool and a bit different. So yeah, I'm entirely like, I would, off the back of this, I would definitely go and see like whatever else that she does, because it was right up my street. So no, I think it was amazing.
Yeah, I kind of noticed it more sort of on the repeat viewing, sort of the first time I was watching this, and it's probably the same with a lot of comedies. I let it wash over me and enjoy the humour, the characters, but sort of this second time around when I went to see it yesterday, I picked up a lot more visual flares that, you know, I thought she had a lot of kind of, you know, good one-track shots as well. I think some of the scenes, you know, especially in sort of the hallways of the school and stuff, that I think she has a real visual eye, and I think it's one of those ones that I think she's put, you know, there's only so much you can technically probably do as a director in sort of schools and comedies. It's you don't perhaps get those action scenes that you can do sort of, you know, wow, look at this camera angle from here, here, and here. But I think what she's done is make something that's visually interesting, and I think the tempo of the film and how she shoots it kind of matches with that of the kind of the humour and the characters, and I think they complement each other really well. I think she's done a fantastic job here. You know, I was really impressed, and I picked up a lot more the second time.
You know, I'm the same. I've seen it twice now, and it was such an assured debut. I think if you told basically someone to go and see this, they wouldn't come out and say that it was a debut director. I thought, you know, like you say, some of the shots in the school, the sort of slow-mo of the guy going along with the fire extinguisher on his skateboard and the sort of water balloons and stuff, and then like to have the confidence to pull off this sort of dream-like dance number in the middle of the party and stuff like that. I thought it was fantastic. And also, you know, in terms of casting, you know, she nailed the casting. I thought the two sort of lead actors were superb. What did everyone make of the sort of double team of Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever?
I was gonna say, like, they're exactly the type of people like I want to be friends with. Like, I think they did a really good job of like portraying them as kind of geeks and focused at school, but still being like fun. Like you never see geeks in films like swear or talk about masturbated or anything. They were very like sex positive, feminist and stuff. It was really cool. It was cool to see that, and them not just being like they kind of were friends with only each other, but they didn't like care. They were like didn't think they were like losers or outcasts or anything. It was really nice to see that instead of it being like a kind of derogatory portrayal of geeks. So I really liked that, and they just seemed really fun and nice, and they were definitely kind of people that I would want to be pals with.
Yeah, I would definitely want to be pals with them as well. Like, Amy kind of reminded me of the sort of girl that I would have had a crush on at high school. Like, take aside that she's a lesbian, like, that nothing to do with that, but, like, the personality and sort of interest was what I was kind of attracted to, like, when I was younger. And, you know, Molly Beanie Fieldstein, like, you know, she was so good in Lady Bird, and I was kind of hoping that she would continue to kind of go on. And sort of between this and she's in the What We Do in the Shadows TV series at the moment, she seems to be like, people are like putting her in things, which is exciting for me, and I kind of see them two and kind of the whole cast really kind of continuing to go on. And I thought they had such great chemistry, and as kind of Kim says that the topics that they talked about, etc. We've heard all the kind of guys talking about them before. You know, you think of things like American Pie and Superbad, you know, masturbation, etc. are all kind of common occurrences. But with this, it's not just like they'll talk about these sort of things and it's just like a one-off titillation thing. Like, it is a recurring thing. They're, as Kim says, they're sex positive. You know, apart from Amy at one point when they're watching the porn and they have the debate about is actually sex positive to enjoy pornography. And I just think that like they're such well written characters, and I think when I watched it for the first time, I knew that there was some female writers involved, but I just assumed naturally they would probably stuff a male writer in there as well. So when it got to that kind of end credit sequence and it was 4 female writers, I thought like that was the best way to kind of go about it, because Amy and Molly are relatable to me to an extent, but probably a lot of what they chat about sort of in their bedrooms and one-to-one is probably incredibly more relatable to other females watching this film than I would. I couldn't write sort of what are women like behind closed doors. I could only speculate, and I think that's where the strength of this film kind of lies a bit.
You know, I thought there was a sort of great sort of positive energy. You know, they're always sort of bigging each other up in terms of appearance with their outfits and stuff like that, to the point where their teacher is rolling their eyes at them and going, oh my gosh, I mean, just get in, you look good, just go and enjoy the party. There's that sort of scene at the end with Triple A in the car where, you know, she admits that, you know, she's done what she did in order and to merit this nickname, but you know, she expected it from the guys, but she was disappointed that other girls in the school were using the name, but Amy herself doesn't want to call her that because it's derogatory, and even sort of Molly sort of decides, you know, that it was wrong for her to use that, and it has a very sort of positive view of women, and they're sort of all in it together as well. And that sort of brings us on to sort of like the representation angle of the film, because it's incredibly positive in terms of sort of race, and sort of you've got Latino characters, black characters, and then sort of the LGBT thing as well, where probably any other sort of movie in the sort of the last sort of 20 years, if it was at high school, whatever, the sort of gay character would have been a sort of subplot or almost treated as a bit of a joke or something. But here it's basically, yeah, Amy is gay and it's no big deal. It's like that's who she is, and you know, her storyline progresses as any other sort of heterosexual character would have done in any other one of these high school films. Did people see that as a sort of positive step forward?
Yeah, I didn't think it felt like tacked on or shoved in or anything, and the fact that there was like other girls in the school that were gay as well, that she ended up like hooking up with at the party and stuff. It just felt really like natural, and they didn't really draw attention to it, like the kind of conversation where Molly brings up that Amy's gay. She just kind of like casually drops it into the conversation. It's not like, it's not this huge thing that's like made a deal of. And even like the scene between Amy and the girl that she ends up kissing in the bathroom and things, like it didn't feel, I felt like you could really feel that it was like filmed through a female gaze instead of like a male gaze. It just felt like a kind of drunken teenage fumble rather than this like overly sexualized. Like it didn't feel like any of the shots out of Wild Things or like Cruel Intentions or anything. It felt very much just like, it just felt nice, and like it was funny that they were like half cut and trying to get it on the bathroom floor and stuff, it didn't feel like overly sexualized and stuff. So yeah, I thought they handled it amazingly.
Yeah, I refuse to believe anyone's first time whenever I see it in films is like sexy. Like I always think like, and I suppose that kind of leads into like you see a lot of these probably audiences for these films. You know, we're in our 30s, etc., and we can kind of look back on these and go, yeah, like that is what real life is. But sometimes you get an audience for this where I think of like things like American Pie. I'm not saying I was inspired or had any expectations set up by American Pie, but like you watch movies like that and like you kind of get the impression, oh, like things are maybe meant to be smooth and quite like they're going to be all really sexy and stuff, where the reality is people are fumbling around, maybe missing, you know, things or something like that. You know, those things are like, that's natural. People are, you know, even like the character was like, you know, yeah, let's kind of watch porn and kind of get the bearings of it. And you hear people talking about watching porn and how it's set up a whole generation of people who don't know what they're doing or have wrong expectations. And then you watch a film like this and you think, like, you hope that the younger audience that are maybe sneaking watching this film on Netflix or renting it or something like that before they've hit that kind of age will look at that and actually get that sort of positive thing of like, it's probably going to be a bit messy, it's maybe not going to be right, hopefully you don't spew on them, but it's probably going to be a more realistic representation than what they're going to actually expect to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of thinking back to, yeah, like you say, you know, 20 years ago with like Cruel Expectations having a lesbian kiss a certain way, or just thinking of like when in Jim in American Pie when his dad walks in on him, and it's like, back then it was like, you know, on like a videotape or magazines and stuff like that, but nowadays it's, you know, oh, I just stream it on my phone in the back of an Uber with the principal driving. You know, times have changed, I guess. You know, we've
Carly
really come on leaps and bounds. Yeah, I know. So we've definitely come on sort of leaps and bounds, and you know, as we sort of discuss the characters, we can discuss the male characters in a second. But for me, my film character of the year, I think, at the moment is Gigi. I think she could be my spirit animal. I thought she was just incredible. And, you know, it's obviously a sort of Penny Lane, sort of Kate Hudson style sort of thing that they're going for with that, which is sort of popping up out of nowhere. I thought, I mean, I've seen it twice now, and she gets sort of the biggest laughs whenever she pops up, and then sort of Beanie Feldstein is like swearing her head off it in shock at her popping up. But I mean, I had no idea that was Billie Lourd. I was like watching this going, I don't know who this is, and then realised it was Carrie Fisher's daughter. And then, you know, I've only ever really seen her in a tiny sort of supporting role in sort of like The Last Jedi and very briefly in The Force Awakens. But I think she is an absolute star, and she's a comic genius as far as I'm concerned. And I think they pitched it just right. I think any more of her, and you could have potentially diluted the sort of the impact that she made. But I thought she stole every scene that she was in for me, I thought.
Yeah, I didn't think it was her. I didn't know who it was, and it was the same with a lot of these actors, apart from Beanie Feldstein, where I was kind of like, I recognize them from something, or they've been like in a minor kind of role, and she was the same when her name kind of popped up in the end credits. I was like, oh, of course it is. Like I thought she was excellent. You know, she's very much the Kim Morrison that she'll just keep kind of popping up, and you'll be like, in this episode, oh, there's Kim Morrison again talking about Booksmart this week, and then next week, oh, there's Kim Morrison talking about Black Mirror. You know, I thought she really nailed that role.
Yeah, I loved her. I thought it was good because she was like the kind of zany character, but she wasn't like too over the top. It was quite believable, and she was still like her own person. Like she was very like knew what she wanted and was going for it. And then at the end, when her mate said, you know, she was just like the most like loyal friend ever. She just felt like, yeah, like you said, like a well-rounded character, not just this like crazy person that was stuck in to get laughs. She felt like someone I would probably be quite happy to be friends with.
Absolutely. So what did we make of the male characters in the film, particularly Jared with his t-shirt and his over-the-top sort of gangster style, and then you had the sort of the thespians, and then sort of the love interest being the sort of jock as well. I mean, they were probably maybe, I guess, sort of some of them, I guess, probably had like were cast in almost sort of the female roles, the object of affection and stuff like this. But do you think they handled the male roles just as well as the female?
Yeah, I guess so. As I say, the sort of the jock, like the jock kind of storyline was quite predictable. That was maybe the only slight disappointment of the movie. But if you kind of think of it as like he's kind of reduced to sort of the role that we see a lot, kind of women reduced to sort of the object of affections that things don't perhaps work out with, like it kind of justifies it a little bit. But for me, Jared is one of the stars of the films. I find him really, really sweet. That it's clear quite early on his heart really is in kind of the right place, that it never sort of takes you down the route of like this guy is like an absolute dickhead, but you almost kind of always feel that little bit of sorry for him, and you think I'd maybe hang out with him or have a chat with him. It's like when he picks the girls up in the car and like he takes them to sort of the boat and he's like, prepare to get bashed, and then it's like, oh, but in like in a fun consensual way, and I mean consensually bashed, like we should get that fixed, and his heart seems like in the right place for everything, and like you can see that he's like looking out for Gigi and Molly and Amy. Everyone's sort of in the film, like when he kind of gets that moment of like, yeah, I just really like kind of planes and stuff, and you know that some of the rumors about him weren't true, and I just thought he was a really pleasant, lovely character, and I would love to have seen a bit more of him, but obviously I wouldn't want that at the expense of sort of our leads.
Yeah, I thought all the male characters were really good as well. Like, I quite liked that there was no, like, complete douchebag guy like there usually is in teen movies. Like, even, like, her love interest guy, like, obviously she didn't end up with him and he went off with someone else, but, like, there was no, like, horrible moment of betrayal or anything. He just clearly fancied the other girl and wasn't really aware that Molly liked him, but, like, when they actually hung out together, he was lovely, and he turns out he likes Harry Potter and everything. Like, what more could you ask for in a guy? So yeah, no, I thought it was really good, and like everyone was, yeah, like Jared as well. You could just tell when they got to speak to him a little bit better. It's just the whole thing, I think, of everyone just puts on this a bit of a like facade at high school, and I think, yeah, when he just chilled out and realized that people actually would speak to him if he wasn't trying to like buy their affection and stuff, he was really nice as well. So yeah, I did like that there was no like typical horrible high school like jock or like prom queen or anything. Everyone was just trying to like get on with their own lives, and everyone actually turned out to be really nice, which was good.
Yeah, no, I thought what was nice is, yeah, they didn't have those stereotypical characters. You know, no one was making a bet on the outcome of something, or we didn't have anyone, you know, no one was sort of like brought along and sort of made up, and, you know, they took their glasses off and suddenly they were really attractive and all this, and oh, we've only just discovered the real person, or there was any sort of outward sort of humiliation and sort of meanness in the actions and stuff. You know, in the end, it was just, you know, Molly and Amy never really told the other two people that they wanted to be with, that they actually liked them, and then they just ended up going together at the party with someone else. So, I mean, it wasn't really their fault. It just happened to be that. And then, of course, you know, it turns out that they get their happy endings with someone else, which is nice. But like I say, you know, we've sort of touched on the fact that it manages to avoid certain sort of tropes and stereotypes of other sort of teen movies. So where do you guys think this sort of stacks up when compared to some of the classics of the genre? And then what are your all-time top 3 sort of coming-of-age movies? Kim, we'll come to you first.
I think in terms of like other teen movies, I think it's really good, because I think some of them, when you look back on them, they're a little bit problematic. Like The Breakfast Club, especially, things like that. Like, I love The Breakfast Club, but you look back at it and you're like, maybe it's not the best message, saying like change your whole appearance if a guy fancies you. So I think I think in terms of other ones, it stands out really well, and I think it has like a much more positive message and better representation of characters and a better representation of geeks and geeky women as well, because you don't always get that a lot in films. There's always nerd boys, there's not a lot of nerd girls and things, so that was good as well. So yeah, it's definitely up there in my top favorite ones, I would say. In terms of my other favorite ones, this is hard because it turns out I like a lot of coming of age films. I tried to look at it and I was like, oh god. So my top 3 that I picked, I went with, while we're talking about slightly problematic films, Dirty Dancing, which is just brilliant. Like a brilliant slice of 80s soundtrack dancing, going out with an older man. It's just brilliant. I love Dirty Dancing. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of dark moments in there as well, but it finishes on a dance routine, so it's good fun. I also went with Ghost World, which is one of my favourite films ever. It's got Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson when she was like 15 in it, and it's very similar to Booksmart actually. It starts on like their graduation day and what they're gonna do afterwards if they're gonna stay pals and everything. It's got Steve Buscemi in it as well, and also has a fantastic soundtrack. So yeah. And then for my last one, I went with one which I used to watch a lot as a teenager, which is Crossroads, which has Britney Spears in it. Which again, I think the opening thing is like on their prom. It's friends who sort of drifted apart at high school, and they come back together to open a memory box, and then they go on this road trip across America to find Britney Spears' mum who abandoned her, who is Kim Cattrall. And there's lots of just randomly spliced in Britney Spears songs for no reason, and it's brilliant. I love it. So that's the three I went with.
All excellent picks. Dirty Dancing is one of those odd ones, isn't it? It's like that and Grease.
Yeah.
It's like when you watch them as kids, you're like, oh, okay, it's got dance numbers, it's great.
Yeah.
And then it's like Grease, when you look back, it's like there is Backstreet abortion storyline. And then also it has that thing of basically the only way she's like, oh no, she learns that, but then she basically, just abandon everything you know, dress up in leather, and you'll get the guy of your dreams. It's like, well, he was ready to change for her, but it's like, no, she changes for him. It's like, boo, that's bad. And then Dirty Dancing also has a Backstreet abortion storyline. I don't know what was going on in the 80s, but it's very Atlantean at the moment, I think. But yeah, and then you have sort of this 34-year-old man seducing the 16-year-old girl, but because they were basically probably both in the sort of early to late 20s, it kind of didn't seem as obviously creepy as it does now, but it's still, like you say, end on a classic dance number, everyone forgets everything, so that's good. So Lee, what about yourself? What do you think it ranks in, and what are your top three?
I think this one's going to go really high up, because I know there's been a lot of debate about sort of that, as great as this film is, that there perhaps it is a little too white. I know there's been some debates there. I mean, I'm not in the best position to really comment on that, but I think this film is going to appeal to a lot of people. Like, even like something that Kim says, it's like nerdy, geeky girls, where it's not sort of like they're geeky about, maybe whether it's Twilight or something like that, where if we were to paint a geek, there's someone that likes Star Wars, there's someone like, they're geeky and passionate about, politics and their life, their careers and goals. And I think there's a lot of people will relate to these characters, and, there'll be people that will go, I think if we had some sort of, there'll be a BuzzFeed quiz eventually where it's like, which Booksmart character are you? Are you the, Shakespeare in the Park guy? Are you Ryan? Are you, all these people. I think there's going to be quizzes like that eventually, and I think everyone will go into that film and take something from it. And I'm long past finishing high school, but I certainly saw elements of my experience in there, things I related to, and I really liked it. And I think it's going to be one that's going to really stand up. And I think people, when it eventually comes out on streaming all around the world, it's going to be one of these films that's going to be gift to death. It's going to have quotes all over Tumblr. Like, it is a film that is just so well made that it's going to kind of go on and on and on, and people will keep finding this film, will love this film. And I think, as you kind of mentioned earlier, will be in a lot of people's top tier of the year lists, but like, there'll be a film that will be the number one film of the year or something like that, and it will be a film that we'll remember for a year or two. But I can see Booksmart being that sort of film that's like, they're on the list or scraping by on people's lists when they put them together, but it will be the film that people will remember perhaps most from the year in time to come, perhaps even more than sort of something like Endgame.
Yeah, I think so, because I think something I've noticed recently is there was a film out last year, I think it was To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and it had, this girl sort of being schooled on what to do at high school and stuff like that by a guy showing her John Hughes movies, and it's like, these are millennials. It's like they probably don't even know who John Hughes. Why is John Hughes still being used as a point of reference for high school kids today? Technically, they should probably be watching, things like Clueless and Mean Girls and stuff like that as their points of reference. I don't understand why it's always John Hughes. I mean, yeah, they are classic films, but they are incredibly problematic and sexist and racist and stuff like that these days. So there's a lot of issues with them. But yeah, I think this will be a sort of touching point and reference point, I think, for people sort of in their sort of generation coming up, I think. So yeah. So what are your top three coming of age films?
So I've gone for ones where it might not be my top three overall, but I think there could be an argument. But like a few weeks ago or something like that, and it seems to be kind of still dragging on Twitter, is that people have made, and I think you kind of nailed it there, like people of a certain generation are like, oh, every film should be inspired by John Hughes when it's kind of teen movies. And there was someone had put this nice little tweet where it was like Edge of 17, Lady Bird, 8th grade and Booksmart, where it was like 4 images of people underwater having a nice sort of like little fun time or whatever there. And it was just like, this, for a lot of people these past few years, those have been their movies where they're like, hey, I can relate to those characters, those women, those people in it, those stories. And it was just a nice thing. And then people started kicking up a fuss of like, well, there are other films that have people in swimming pools, etc. And some of that has been joined in, and other people seem to be kind of clamoring on and saying that, you know, some people just think films have been in the past 5 years. But I am going to kind of double down on that, because the films I'm going to pick are Edge of 17, Lady Bird, and 8th grade, which also have, someone has gone even further from that picture thing and gone, these films are all coming of age films that come out 1 year after another, focus on heartwarmingly and heartbreakingly realistic female protagonists, have the same poster color palette, and feature a god tier pool scene. 3 of these films have also been directed by women, Bo Burnham being the exception, former guest on the show. And you know, I think these are 3 fantastic films. I don't know if all you guys have seen them, but Edge of 17 I think is one of the best films of the past few years. I remembered when I went to see it, I didn't know what to expect, didn't have the greatest of expectations, didn't know who Haley Steinfeld was, and I came out of it going, I would love to watch every Haley Steinfeld film ever, including Barely Lethal. And I think it's such a fantastic portrayal of being a young adult. You know, I'm sure people will relate to it as being a young female, but I think it's so great. It's got Woody Harrelson, it's got Haley Lou Richardson, who me and you love from Columbus. It's just got such a great cast, and written and directed by Kelly Freeman Craig, and like it's another one where we feel like we've let her down. Like, she has not directed a film sort of since 2016. She's involved in making an Edge of 17 TV show for YouTube, but like, she should be making more films. Like, Edge of 17 is so well directed, so well put together, well written. Like, this woman should be given so many jobs. And then like Lady Bird followed it the other year. We've kind of talked about that a lot, and we'll talk about it in future episodes of the A24 project. I love that one. You know, I was so desperate to see it, I went and saw it in America. And then 8th grade, which we've kind of spoken about over the years. I think like that and Booksmart complement each other. Of like, if Booksmart was sort of maybe the more stylish version of high school, we thought, yeah, that's kind of like what my high school would be like, or I wish it was like. 8th grade was probably the more realistic one for probably the younger generation. So yeah, those would be my recommendations.
Okay, so I think it's clear that Lee sees his coming of age as a teenage girl, because he hasn't picked a male protagonist film in that entire list. So his coming of age actually, you've only come of age in the last 3 years. Then it seems, Lee. So
I relate to all the dads in these movies. So like the amazing, so Woody Harrelson, you know, father-like figure as a teacher, I can relate to that, you know, in my sort of role as doing student support before. And then sort of the dad in Lady Bird is so adorable, you know, doing anything for his girl. And then 8th grade, everyone talks about how great 8th grade is, but the dad is so cool as well in that. And yeah, so in Booksmart, you know, I could be, you know, I get paid okay. If I had a car, maybe I would be supplementing it for, you know, an Uber income as well. So, you know, I can relate to that character as well. And I don't know anything about Harry Potter, so I'm definitely not the jock character. So, you know, I can see things in there. I can relate to things. So yeah, it's coming of age movies, but I'm relating to the people next to the coming of age characters.
Cool. But you know, for me, the best sort of movie parents in a coming of age film of recent years has to be Patricia Clarkson and Stanley Tucci in Easy A. Best movie parents ever for me. I thought they were just fun.
I got a pocket full of sunshine.
Oh, now that song's not going to get out of our heads for an entire week. I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So for my top 3, I did have a John Hughes film in at number 3, because I thought, well, it would be wrong for me not to have, because, you know, I did grow up basically during the 80s, so therefore I had a lot of them, and I was like, which one do I pick? And then I was thinking, right, well, it would probably have to be Weird Science for certain reasons of growing up anyway. First movie crush being Kelly LeBrock, and who won. This is a film I watched recently, and have to admit, it would not get made nowadays. It is so incredibly objectified and sexist, and just so bad. But it has got a great Bill Paxton supporting performance as Chet, the older brother, and it is a lot of fun. Hey, one of the first films of Robert Downey Jr. actually, when he was still credited just as Robert Downey, so it still has a lot of pull for me. I was thinking of 10 Things I Hate About You, but I'm going to put that as a recommendation for this week's, to go and listen to this week's Missing Frames with Sean Eastridge, who watches it for the very first time. So I'll put it at that. Number 2 was Almost Famous, because I just loved that film, and it was one of the films that made me want to be a writer as well. Not a music writer, it turned out, to write about film, but I just thought it was fantastic and a great sort of coming of age story. And number 1 is another film which ends on the final day of school, and it's Dazed and Confused, which for me is the all-time greatest sort of last day of school party film. And yeah, it has some certain questionable characters in the form of Wooderson. He gets older, but they stay the same age. But all right. You've got Ben Affleck as another asshole from Fashionable Male with a paddle and stuff like that. But for me, I think just the soundtrack, just the feel of it, the look of it is just fantastic, and it's like one that you wish you could have been there that night to experience that last night at school for them. And I thought it was just great. Although there's a wonderful drinking game. I don't know if you've ever seen the film, but if you ever want to get absolutely utterly smashed, take a shot or a sip of drink anytime Wiley Wiggins touches his hair away from his face. He's a young kid with long hair. He does it like almost every sort of 30 seconds. You'll be absolutely smashed by the end of that film. So that's it for me. That's my top 3.
Some excellent choices there. I'm glad that we all picked like 9. And
I know, yeah, there was not actually any crossover, which is excellent. So that's good. So I mean, Lee, you've mentioned 3 films which were sort of, many of them were directed by women, and brings us on nicely to our 52 films by women pledge, where each week we each recommend a film directed by a woman for you to enjoy. So Kim, what is your pick for this week?
Well, I picked The Virgin Suicides a few weeks ago, so I thought I would go with my other favourite Sofia Coppola film, which is Lost in Translation, which came out in 2003, and it's, again, it has Scarlett Johansson in it, because I love her. She moves to Japan with her boyfriend, who's like a photographer, but she doesn't really have a job or anything, so she just kind of sits around the hotel, and she ends up being pals with Bill Murray, who is a kind of Asian actor that's over there doing like adverts for Japanese whiskey, I think. And yeah, they just end up being friends, and it's just kind of the story of their like unlikely friendship, and it's just lovely and kind of makes you want to move to Japan and go and do like karaoke and run around arcades and stuff. It's just really fun, and it's nice to see a film about like a young woman and an older man, and it not be some weird pervy romantic relationship. Like, they're just friends, and it's really nice, and they both just kind of help each other through what they're going through. They're both kind of having trouble sleeping, and they don't really have friends, and they're quite lonely and things, and it's just it's just a really nice like feel good film to sit down and watch.
Yeah, you've picked one of my all-time favourite films. I just love that film, and it's one of the reasons why I want to go to Japan, and I'm going to go next year and go to the bar. I'm not going to stay in the hotel because I've looked at the prices and I can't afford it, but I can go to the bar and at least have a Suntory whiskey. So what do you think he whispers to her at the end? Is it Hail Hydra?
I can't even think, it's so difficult to, like, you hope it's just something nice. He's obviously leaving her behind, and I think he's just kind of telling her like that she's amazing and that a lovely person, and that like everything's going to be fine, even though she's like in Japan by herself. She's kind of proved that she can go out and make friends and have fun, and I think it's probably something.
Yeah, no, I think
kind of
what's great about that is the fact that even now, sort of 16 years on, they've never actually publicly admitted what he said, and even the subtitles he tried to bring out just says inaudible whispering. so I don't think we're ever going to find out what they say. So that's great. So Lee, what's your pick for this week?
Yeah, I've now managed to untap iTunes USA, and it has every A24 film ever up for rental. And there's a couple that have had no cinema release or no expected cinema release here in the UK. And one of those movies, and it's kind of been a year since it actually even got shown here in the UK at Sundance London, and that's Never Going Back, directed by Augustine Frizzell. And this is sort of a kind of fit with the vibe of sort of Booksmart, of sort of two waitresses, Angela and Jessie, and they kind of wanted to get away from sort of this low rent diner in Texas that they work in, and they want to sort of get away from sort of their kind of dead end job and sort of lives, and sort of they end up sort of arrested after sort of a drug robbery goes wrong at their house. This makes it sound incredibly dramatic. It is really not. It is really kind of very amusing, and sort of they need money to sort of kind of keep living, really. So they get up to wild schemes like gate crashing a party so that they can use the washing machine, and it's all builds up to quite a hysterical, unforgettable climax, which basically adds a half star, if not a full star, onto the end of the movie as well. So this is one that if you've got iTunes in America, definitely check this one out. And if it's not come out here in the UK yet, we should be asking ourselves why a movie like this, which has two kind of really great actresses in it as well. I think one of them has become a bit notorious lately for being I think it's Camilla Morrison, who has become famous for being part of the Leonardo DiCaprio age graph. So yeah, definitely check this one out. It was quite an amusing movie, and if you like seeing girls shit and spew, this is definitely the movie for you.
I'll add it to my bridesmaid subcategory list on Letterboxd. So we'll round things out with my choice for the week, and it's going to be Always Be My Maybe, which debuted on Netflix this week, and is directed by Nacha Khan and is written by Randall Park and Ali Wong, and it stars Ali Wong as a celebrity chef who comes back to San Francisco and sort of meets up with her former sort of childhood friend who they had a romantic liaison in their teens, and it's about sort of them reconnecting, and sort of standard sort of rom-com, but it's got a great sort of representation in sort of terms of Asian American sort of leads on screen, written by them as well. Great platform for them. But I think the one thing which most people are going to be taking away from the film is a certain cameo by man of the moment, John Wick, Keanu Reeves, and they sort of had him in the trailer, and it sort of turns out he's like dating this woman at one point. But what I didn't realise going into the film is that he's actually playing himself, Keanu Reeves, albeit a heightened version of him that plays up the sort of weird, sort of mystical side that he sort of projects, sort of talking about his kung fu and stuff like that. And it's a genuinely hilarious performance where he sort of goes into this restaurant. There's a great bit where he asks about any dishes that play with the concept of time, and then he gets like a Venetian dish which has earphones so you can listen to the deer that was alive while you eat it, and he starts sobbing into his red wine. It's just one of those sort of scene-stealing, sort of amazing sort of performances. And a few years ago, there was a music sort of meme where, was it Ex Machina, where they had this dance sequence and people started putting different music over the sort of 10-second clip, and they're now doing this, I found out today, with Keanu makes an entrance. So when he enters into the restaurant, it was a certain piece of music of the film, and now they're playing different bits of music over it. So it's on Twitter, so you can search for that just now. But I mean, there's been Keanu memes for the last sort of month or so, but he's not going away anytime soon. It's just one of the all-time great cameos for me, and it's a rom-com which is very sweet but very funny as well, and it's definitely worth checking out on Netflix. So.
Yeah, I need to definitely check that one out. That sounds brilliant.
So that brings us to the end of this episode, but next week will we return to ask Black Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, which is the fairest episode of them all, as we review Season 5, which is just coming out on Netflix, and reminisce over Charlie Brooker's back catalogue. So until then, who wants pancakes?
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd